We're going to cover 2 different situations you might find yourself in when it comes to brassy or red hair. First, you dyed your hair and it looked amazing, and after a few washes, it turned brassy, even red. Or maybe as soon as you dyed your hair, it looks brassy and you don't like it. We're going to help you to understand why this happens and how you can fix it.
Okay, let's start with the first scenario. You dyed your hair, you love it, but after a few washes, it starts to look brassy or red. Now this problem only happens when you use permanent dye. This happens because permanent hair dye removes our natural hair color before it replaces it with a new shade you just picked out.
Wait, what?
Permanent hair dye works by removing our natural color and then putting a new color in the old natural color's place. It does 2 things at once. Why this is important to you is you need to understand that your old natural hair color has been removed forever. You know, permanently. If you have ever lightened your hair before, you know it doesn't just go from brown to blonde. It goes from brown to red to orange and then to blonde. After that permanent hair dye has removed your old natural color, it is now going to replace it with the new shade that you picked out. That is how permanent dye works. Hopefully you are happy with the shade of dye you bought and you totally love your new hair color. Now here comes the hard part, keeping it.
Every time you're washing your hair, you're washing off what is not naturally found in your hair, like hair dye. This is why SALONFREE suggests you wash your hair only as needed. The more you wash it, the faster you wash out the hair dye.
So once you have washed away some of that dye, you will start to see the color that the dye turned your hair when it was removing your natural hair color. This is always going to be a red, orange, or brassy color. It doesn't matter who you are. The only way to prevent this from happening is to wash your hair as little as possible. Or you could put a semi-permanent or demi-permanent dye on your hair every 2 weeks, just like we do.
Moving on. Maybe you're not happy with your hair color the second you rinse the dye out. Permanent dye is removing your natural color before it replaces it with the shade you picked out.
No matter who you are going to pull red, orange, or brassy color anytime you use permanent dye. So if I know my hair is going to pull a red or orange color before the permanent hair dye replaces my natural color with a new color, I'm going to need to compensate for that.
Wait, what? Close your eyes and imagine a bucket of orange paint. Now what would you have to add to that orange paint in order to make that paint brown?
If you wanted that orange paint to turn brown, would you add yellow? Well, no way. All that would do is make it an orange-yellow color, right?
Hair dye works just like that. Permanent hair dye will make your hair red, orange, and yellow before it puts in that new shade. So if you don't want to see any red, orange, or yellow in your hair, you need to avoid hair dye shades that say auburn, copper, gold, or warm. For example, golden brown.
If you choose any golden shade, it's just like you putting that yellow paint into that orange paint and hoping it turns brown. Obviously you know that won't work out, but this is often why people have brassy hair when they didn't want it in the first place. If this has happened to you or is currently happening to you, go buy a semi-permanent or a demi-permanent dye and slap it right on top of that brassy hair. When it's time to touch up your roots next time, avoid buying a shade of dye that has the word auburn, copper, or gold in the title. Try buying an ash or a natural shade instead. So to recap, if your hair starts turning brassy after a few washes, that's normal. You could try washing it less or slap a gloss on it.
Permanent hair dye does 2 jobs at the same time. It removes your natural color, leaving it a brassy color, and then replaces it with the shade you picked out. Everyone pulls red, orange, even yellow colors when dyeing their hair with permanent dye. Everyone.
If your hair looks reddish or brassy as soon as you wash off that hair dye, you're going to need to pick out an ash or natural shade the next time you dye. Adding yellow to orange will not make brown. It'll just make a yellow-orange.
If at any time that your hair turns brassy, you can always use a semi-permanent, demi-permanent, or gloss on your hair, and it works every time.